We be live.
Hello.
Hello. I see people in the live chat. Secular Sekai is saying hello. Music guy here. Do you hear Jim Holy? Jim Holy Long? Oh, okay. It's here. Count Dracula is here. Mustafa is here. Hi guys. We already have some questions coming in. SB has some questions. Steven has some questions. But first, we have to get to the Patreon questions. But Susanna, did you remember your question because you had a question?
I did have a question.
Okay. Did you do you
So,
remember? Okay.
yeah, I was thinking about how um, for the Ukraine Russia conflict, this has brought up a lot of conversations in different spheres of like media analysis in particular, talking about differential treatment between this conflict happening in Europe versus many conflicts happening in the Middle East or Africa or either like even like Latin America, right? And you did a stream on this, a surprise stream that I missed on Secular Jihadists about this that I really enjoyed. So guys, go check that out on Secular Jihadists. But you were reviewing the video of the Muslim preacher um, talking about these like Western hypocrisies, right? And one of the ones that he brings up, and I've seen people bring this up on Twitter, is how like all of a sudden white people understand jihad um, based on their celebration of so many typically European um, nationals enlisting and volunteering to go fight for Ukraine, like a nation that has never been their own, and to go, on a different territory to go fight. And um, I thought it was really interesting because we would probably say like that's not a fair comparison because ISIS is going to like terrorize any
Yes.
civilian population. Um,
Right. So,
but
but
my
just to give context for people, that what this Muslim YouTuber was saying is like, how come we're supporting people going and fighting, defending Ukraine, but we weren't defending Muslims leaving the UK to go fight in Syria? And it was like, well, obviously because the ones who were going to fight in Syria, they were joining ISIS. It's not like we're not being hypocrites. One of them is defending Ukraine against an aggressor, the other one is going to join an aggressor, right? In both cases, we're on the side of the aggressee, not on the side of the aggressor. So, like, how are we being hypocrites? But yeah, go on.
I was just thinking about that some more because when you were going over this point, you were like, "Am I just being biased? Like, is there some perspective here that I can not get over because I don't understand how bad this point is?" Basically,
Yeah.
um, do you think it'd be fair if someone argued basically like you just say that because of um a bias in your values, like these are the values that we can feel compelled to fight for, and like who
Right.
are you to say that one is better than the other? Obviously I'd be like, well, I don't think it's something valuable to like build a caliphate, but that's my
Right.
prerogative.
Yeah. Basically, what you're referring to is like the question that's I sometimes have to struggle with is that sometimes it's so obvious to me that we're right and they're wrong. But then I wonder, is it so obvious because we have been so deluded? Maybe they're right and we're wrong. And somehow we have been so brainwashed and so deluded that we can see how wrong we are. And sometimes they're like, when they're like, what if we are the wrong, in the wrong? What if we're the wrong ones and they're the right ones? How can we, like, I try to wipe the board completely clean as much as possible. I start from scratch. And like, okay, why do we believe the things that we believe? Because I am paranoid about that. I am paranoid about I this is why sometimes I like reevaluate even the basics, right? Go from the beginning, like why is this good, why are they wrong, right? um and it goes back to defining what's good, and it all ends up going to, I think, to the simple question, what makes people happy, right? And do we care about that, right? And I think it just all goes back to that, right? And if that's the first step, like as long as we care about other people's happiness and we want them to more people to be happy and less people to be miserable, I think if we keep reconstructing our beliefs from scratch, and well, how do we get there, I still think most of the time we get back to where we are at, like right away. I don't think the best way to increase happiness in the world is to join ISIS. I highly doubt that. I might be so brainwashed to be wrong about this, but I have done my best as much as possible to make an attempt to be honest with myself. And if I'm still wrong after all this effort, to not be biased, to not like be deluded by whatever I'm being impacted by, then there's no way to get out of this delusion. Do you know what I mean? If after everything I've done, I'm still being deluded, then what can I do? I'm stuck here, and there's no way out because I've done my best. So yeah, there's no hope, right?
Yeah. I just thought it was funny because that was a perspective that I just couldn't understand. And the only perspective that I can try to understand it through is like someone who's being relativist.
Yeah. So D is saying, I think we are right about ISIS. She's doing her eye roll. The reason why we mention ISIS is because it's like the most obvious one. But I'm saying even the most obvious, like here, secularity has a response to this. Like, yeah, you got to do what Descartes said about emptying your apple basket every now and then to make sure you're still
Mm-hmm.
correct, which is kind of scary because even when Descartes did that, he emptied his apple basket and he still ended up being wrong. so like even when you do empty your apple basket and then you refill it, Descartes led to believing in God, that he refilled it with God. So like if that even that doesn't help, that doesn't get you.
God
God
and
damn.
dualism.
Yeah,
A
God and
bad
dualism.
combo.
Yes.
um
So there we go. Anyways, so let's get to the Patreon question. Oh, do you want to add
yes.
anything? Oh,
No,
oh,
that's all. We have
oh.
Patreon questions today because today's Q&A day. If you would like to get your questions answered first and be sure that we answer your questions, you can become you can support us on Patreon, link in the description below. And we answer all your questions first. And it's also perfect if you're not able to join live. And not only that, but on our Patreon, you get our sexy blasphemous art. And you can get all of this for as little as $1 a month. So please consider supporting us. With that being said, we got some juicy questions today, and I'm excited about this first one. I'm not gonna lie, because okay,
Just before, I just want to announce to YouTube that what we said about ISIS, this was just like a hypothetical mind experiment. Okay, we are anti-ISIS. Please do not strike us down. Okay, we were just doing. Okay, this was just like a hypothetical. God damn it! All right. Yes. Okay. So
we're never gonna win.
this is just for the record. If this video gets strike, okay, but go on.
Okay,
Next
so
first question.
first question is from Secular Sakai, saying Armin, the NCRI, which I think stands for the National.
Wait. This is one of those questions that requires some context before we read the questions. Okay, so the MEK, it's a terrorist organization that is against. It's an opposition group to the Islamic Republic of Iran. Yes, we are all against the Islamic Republic of Iran. However, the MK, we don't support the MEK. This is a terrorist group that is fusion of Islamism and communism, has created this cult. It's a very, very dangerous cult that has been involved in acts of terror, but also mass brainwashing and like very weird brainwashing
Kidnapping.
tactics of kidnapping. So it's weird. Like if you watch documentaries on the MEK, uh, they have crazy strategies and crazy practices. But yeah, it's basically a child of Islam and communism, which is like, like imagine what you get out
Islamic
of that.
communist
Islamic
terrorist
communists,
cult.
Shia Islamic communists. Yeah,
Yeah.
imagine. Yeah. So yeah, that's what they are. All right. So with that context, let's read the question.
Armin, the NCRI seems to be the puppet political wing of MEK, and you would be correct. I believe the NCRI stands for the National Congress of the Republic of Iran. I can't
What?
remember.
I didn't know that. Okay, if
Okay, but
that's correct.
it
Okay,
is MEK. It is 100% MEK.
yeah.
By
Okay, let me see what it
contrast,
said. Okay.
the newer, I think it's just titled the National Congress of Iran, the NCI, appears to be Reza Pahlavi's attempt to reclaim the throne of the Shah and supposedly one day institute a secular democratic
What did you say?
constitutional
Sorry.
monarchy
What?
in Iran.
Wait. Before you read that, what did you say NCRI stands for?
The National Council of the Republic of Iran.
Resistance of Iran. National Council
Ah,
of Resistance. Still pretty close. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
okay.
Impressive. All right. Go ahead.
So, there's that, and then there's the NCI, which is belonging to the Shah. He has also voiced support for Iran possibly becoming a presidential republic. Do you believe Pahlavi can be trusted? Should the Persian diaspora instead seek to form an alternative government in exile to these two, if any at all? So I was very excited for this question because it kind of gives you the opportunity to talk about some Shah lover drama going on in the atheist public Persian community right now, which
Yeah,
has been juicy to hear about.
I'm getting in some trouble on on Atheist Republic's Persian channel because I am like more openly voicing my opinion against monarchy, right? Which a lot of people in Iran support against the Islamic Republic of Iran. I basically tell them both Islam and monarchism as a thing of the past. Like most Iranians want, I think, a secular democracy. That's what the polls show. And we have to look into the future. Like a response to Islamism is not like something in response to something as backward as Islamism is not something else that is also backwards, which is monarchism, right? Like this is like not Game of Thrones. This is like a country that we're trying to manage. We have to look forward, not try to bring things to the past, right? So, well, you're muted. Yeah.
I was saying
Uh,
monarchism is so cringe. I hate it.
yeah, I hate it as well. But you know who else agrees with me over monarchism being a thing of the past?
Oh, Russell Pahlavi.
Reza Pahlavi. Okay, so these monarchists in Iran have all their hopes and dreams in Reza Pahlavi being like the prince who one day will come and save Iran. But he himself, in there was leaked audio that showed that he finds all of these his supporters cringe, and he thinks like we need to look like this is like thing of a past and a backward way of looking at it, managing a country. So Reza Pahlavi, the monarch that everybody's hoping to come become king, he doesn't believe in monarchism. He believes in a secular democracy, and so that audio, by the way, was so ruined these people. Like it devastated them
It
because
must have
I
just
mean
made them melt.
yes. So Reza Pahlavi doesn't believe in monarchy. So what are they gonna do? Like I don't know how. Like I keep asking them. Like your princess doesn't believe in monarchy. So who are you gonna make turn into a king? Who's your other candidate? You have nobody. You have nobody, right? But anyways, I do like Reza Pahlavi. Most of his opinions are pretty good, except one time he said that he doesn't agree with insulting Islam. So other than that opinion, I agree with almost everything else I've heard him saying, including the fact that I respect him a lot more when he said that when he came out and said that he doesn't believe this is like and he also showed some disdain for his like blind followers. Like he referred to
Mm.
them as like sheepish or something like that, right? So pretty. I mean, I'm glad that he recognized that. And Secular Sekai is saying like it sounds like a guy worth learning more about. Yeah, yeah. So he's the son of the uh, last king of Iran. After more than 5,000 years of history, Iran had only kings, right? And right, Iran had kings for thousands of years until the Islamic Revolution of Iran. That was in 1979. Was the first time Iran didn't have a king, right? And this Reza Pahlavi is the son of the last king of Iran.
It's pretty
And
wild.
so many Iranians hoping that he will be the future king of Iran, but that's never going to happen.
He doesn't have an interest in that. Do you think that there should be an alternative in government, alternative government in exile that should be formed? I don't think
Um,
so.
no, I don't think so. I think it needs to be like these days. Movements need to be organic from bottom up. I think top-down approaches for revolutions are a thing of the past. I think. Yeah.
Oh, this is good. Wait, Gossam is saying, what? How do you say this? We call them Shahotul Ali. I can't say
Shah.
it right.
Oh, we refer to them as Shah. These monarchists in Iran, we refer to them as Shahullahi because we make fun of them because they act very the zeal and how sensitive they are. Like they have made the symbols of monarchy. They have made it sacred, and they're very very sensitive about anybody insulting. I don't know, monarchy or the king, or if you talk in if you say the slightest insult to any of the people in the Pahlavi dynasty, they just lose their mind, right? So just like we have ayatollahs in Islam, we refer to these people as Shahullah. Shah meaning king. Shah means king in Farsi. So it's just basically, saying then you're basically just like these religious ayatollahs. Yeah. So and they hate it.
So
They
funny.
hate it when we call
It's
them
so
Shahullah.
funny.
Oh yeah, and
And
also they call it. They're coming up with their own term. They're calling us atheistullah, atheistullahi.
what does that
They're like,
mean?
I don't know. They're saying we're being religious about our atheism. So
Oh my goodness. I was laughing because I was thinking of the things that Armin recently had a very controversial guest on the Persian channel, and some of the things he has said against the Shah and his family have been so wild
yeah,
and
yeah,
out of and so brass and crazy. Made me laugh so hard when you were describing it. Um,
yeah.
okay, so next question is from Gasian American, who's asking, corporations are now buying large amounts of farmland and farmers are forced to lease their land from those corporations. Would you consider this to be feudalism?
I'm correct, Susanna. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't it feudalism? Feudalism is under peasants or the serfs. Are they not like forced to live the way they're living? Like they
I don't
kind of like
know.
don't have. I
Maybe it
feel like they.
depends.
I mean, they're technically like a semi slave. You know what I mean? Like I think like I don't think it's the same thing because I think like if somebody comes and buys your farmland, you're like that was voluntarily. And then if you like now have a farm and you're like we're hiring people to come work here, right? Anybody who like okay, I want to come work here, they're technically because they accepted that deal, accepted that contract or their employee contract or whatever, they went from a worse off situation to a better off situation because they entered into this. You made like you bought this farm and you're like putting up job offers, and so whoever is accepting the job offer, you're making their lives better, right? My understanding of feudalism, which could be wrong because I haven't looked into it that much, is like the people who are working under your farms under feudalism, they are screwed. Like this is there's no way out of what they're doing. You know what I mean? This is why you're treating you like a lord. Like you basically you have so much control over their lives. Like you could like do whatever you want to them. You could. This is why like it's a step between. capitalism and slavery, like technically they're not as they're not as close to employees under capitalism. They're closer to what came before them, which was like slaves, right? But is that a fair assessment to say like yeah, I don't think it's the same, because just because you own land, that doesn't make it. Feudalism is not when somebody owns a lot of land. That's what I
What
mean.
if, they're like, well, this is modern feudalism by, creating this disparity and then like upwards dependency because of buying out resources in
I
major
mean,
conglomerates.
you're not. I mean, you're not. Well, technically, the person who's buying the land was the person that had the resources to um, make this land available for farming. You know what I mean? Like somebody came in and is providing the capital to make it possible for people to come work there. Without that capital, these farmers wouldn't have been able to do such a thing. I mean, if they were, they would have been outbidding that person, right? So the resources that is required to make this farmland available for farming to these farmers, right? And also, it's like you're creating more upward mobility because of the capital that you're providing to to these farms. Now the person that didn't have a job is now able to come and like, hey, I'll work on your farm. So you're technically, by doing this, you're lifting people up. You're not holding them down. You're providing potential. You're providing opportunity for people that didn't have a job to now have more jobs. So I don't like, you know, under feudalism, they're like, it's kind of like you're holding people hostage. Like you're like, you want to eat, you better work. Okay. Here it's like you have another job. Well, there are more jobs, because now there are more jobs. That means you could potentially get paid higher than what I before. I'm providing. If you throw more money at farming, farmers are now going to get paid more than they used to. There's going to be more demand. There's going to be more. Um, you know, there's going to be somebody is showing a demand for what farmers can provide, so the price of the labor of farmers is going to increase. So not only you're not holding them hostage, just like the lords did under feudalism, what they did to the serfs, what you're doing is providing an opportunity for them to earn more than what you than before. So I think this is the opposite. Yeah, Oxymoron is saying in the live chat, feudalism is sort of like caste, but not slave. There's minimal social mobility, more like caste. Yeah, okay, so there's exactly. So Oxymoron is correct. There's minimum social mobility, but when an investor comes and throws money at farming, you're increasing social mobility because there's more demand for work now. So I think there's a difference. Yeah. Does that
Um,
make sense? Did that make any sense?
yeah.
Okay.
To be honest, I think I need to go lie down.
Okay. Susanna is not feeling very well today, so I'm
Mm.
actually very impressed that she's even made an attempt. Oh, poor Susanna. Okay, okay. Go ahead. Okay, don't go take a break. Okay, she's not feeling very well. Okay, but guys, like you guys need to say thank you to Susanna, because she wasn't feeling very well at all
Well,
at the
I wanted
beginning.
to say hi.
She still made an attempt to come here. Okay, go get better. Okay,
Okay, bye.
okay, bye.
I'll
No,
be
poor.
listening.
Okay, poor Susanna. Oh, I you know I made an offer. I told her not to come, but she's so interested. She's so sweet. She really wanted to come hang out with you guys, so she still came over, because I told her, like, if you're not feeling well, just don't come. But this is how much you guys need to be really grateful, because she really, really wanted to come and hang out with you guys. You guys are saying, look at this. You guys are giving. I hope she's okay. So she's listening right now. So I'm gonna read your comments. Wait, hold on. Let me read her, because she's listening. I'm gonna read your comments because she's not looking at the screen. People are saying she's gonna go get a rest. People are sending her hearts. Jack is saying, thanks, get well soon. Secular Sekai is like, feel better, Susie. Thanks, Susie. Feel better, Susie. Oh, so yeah. Look at all these loves. Susanna, you're getting so much love. Okay, somebody saying boring with that, Susanna. Okay, I'll take that because that's like, even though you're being mean to me, but because it's a compliment to Susanna, I'll still take it. Yeah, secular rarity saying it's because she's a hardcore badass. That's right. That's correct. Okay, okay. So yeah. All right, cool. Let's get D is saying dressed up for the news. Yes, okay. All right, let's go to the questions. Okay, guys, because I am now doing the questions by myself, it's gonna be hard for me to keep an eye on the Patreon questions and also read your comments coming in, but I'll try my best. Okay. So here's the next Patreon question. Secular Sekai saying, could you please discuss and compare Indian Charvaka, yes, and Greek Epicureanism? In your opinions, could one call these ancient philosophers early forms of humanism? Okay, so I'm gonna um base this based on the very little information that I have of these two things, and you guys could correct me in the live chat if I'm wrong. Okay, I'm gonna keep an eye on the live chat to see what you guys think as well. Okay, my very basic understanding of Indian Sharvaka is like that there was a this is an atheistic, this is an ancient materialistic atheistic school of thought in India. Okay. However, I also know that, if I'm correct, like correct me if I'm wrong, that we don't know much about them directly, because most of the I think all of the information we have of them is of other people writing about them, and when they were writing about them, they weren't being very kind to them, like they were attacking them. So we don't know how accurate the description of these people were, right? So, but if we just assume that, so like they were portrayed as being very full of themselves, very like selfish, um right, very like egoistic. I'm not sure exactly, I don't remember the details, but I don't know if we could know exactly what they stood for, given that we don't have much of information about them. Again, this is what I've read. Maybe this is information isn't correct. However, if we just assume that they were atheistic and materialistic, um I know they were kind of like seemed like hedonistic and utilitarianist to some extent. Um, so in that sense, maybe you could call them humanists, because they cared more about um, taking care of us humans rather than these religious mumbo jumbo. So maybe in that sense, you could call them humanists. Let me see what you guys are saying. If you're correcting me, Abundus. Oh, Secular Sekai saying Armin gives great analysis on topics, always an interesting listen. Oh, thank you. Wait, I should keep this highlighted. Jack saying, okay, no. Oxymar saying, I don't understand Charvaka obsession. Charvaka, I don't even know if I'm reading this right, are deeply flawed as a philosophy. They are on a revival because they seem cool to modern Hindutva and socialists. Okay, so Oxymoron, I don't know how flawed can they be, because my understanding is that the writings that we have about Sharvaka is like by people who hated them. So we don't know if they were flawed or if they were just portrayed like that. Secular Sekai is saying Sharvaka is kind of philosophical atheism, materialism. Yeah, well, I haven't gotten to Epicureanism yet. Um, Okay, so nobody is contesting what I said about Sharvaka. Okay, so let me, and also Greek Epicureanism. Yeah. By the way, Epicureanists were hated by the Stoics, because Epicureanism is the first. I think it would be more accurate to say Epicureanism is an early form of utilitarianism. Okay, and you could see why Stoics would be against Epicureanism, because Stoics were into virtue ethics, right? So you could see from early ancient philosophy the battle between utilitarians and virtue ethicists against each other. You see that in the form of Stoics versus Epicureans. I know, like, yes, the utilitarianism of John Stuart Mill is a lot more advanced than what Epicureanism represents, right? But still, I think that's what would be a more accurate way of describing Epicureanism. But again, utilitarianism as a whole could be considered humanist, because what does utilitarianism try to do? Utilitarianism is trying to improve the well-being of humans, right? So technically, yes, you're right. Epicureanism is an early form of humanism because it's an early form of utilitarianism, and utilitarianism cares for the utility of humans. So yeah, I think it would be fair to say that about Epicureanism, in my opinion. I don't know much about the Sharvaka, if that would be a form of humanism. I would think like you could also say Sharvaka is another form of humanism, because if it is a philosophical school of thought that doesn't care about like the afterlife and the superstition and the supernatural and all of that, then I would assume their focus would be on improving this life which we human live in, and improving the well-being of us right now. So in that sense, if that is what it's focusing on, then it would be fair to say it's an early form of humanism. Does that make sense? The oxymoron is saying Sharvaka were bold but not intelligent. They reject the inference with incompatible with modern science and hermeneutics. Other philosophies were much more interesting. It's not coherent philosophy. Okay, I don't know these details about them, and I don't know if what you're saying is accurate, because again, how do you know this about them? They didn't left much writing of themselves, did they? This, like, we know what we know about them is what other people wrote about them, right? So maybe the inconsistencies you see in their philosophy is because of how they were described, not exactly what they said. That's my understanding. That's what I read. Maybe what I read was incorrect. Okay. Wait. Let me remove this. Go to the next question. Secular Sekai is saying, oh, so here's a fun question apparently from Secular Sekai. Let's see what this question is. What are your thoughts on the 1979, I don't know, this 1978 Sealand Civil War, the smallest civil war? Oh, okay. I didn't read upon this. I don't know about this. I know Susanna, I think, did a little bit of a mini research about this before coming on, and she was fascinated about it. So I was waiting for Susanna to talk about this. So maybe I'll leave this for the next week's Q&A, because Susanna was very interested in like addressing this. So maybe next week, if Susanna is feeling better, we'll address this over there, because I have no idea what this. So she was interested in this, so I'll leave it for then, because I have no idea what happened here. I don't know what the interest story is. Yeah, I'll leave this. If you don't mind, I'll leave this for next week when Susanna is here. Please post this again next week, because she wanted to answer this. Okay, let's go to this one. All right. Actually, this question, I'm going to share the screen on Patreon, because it's not sure. It doesn't show very well over here because it was too long of a question. So I have to share the screen. Okay. Let me zoom in. All right. So Gagin American is saying scientists train 100 neurons to play a game of Pong. Armin brain is scanned, and a virtual Armin AI is made from artificial neurons. So VAAI, virtual Armin AI. Okay, for short. Okay, VAAI is a virtual Armin AI that is made out of my neurons. Okay, when Armin eventually reincarnates, East Asian euphemism for unalive. What? East Asian euphemism for unalive. Okay. Okay, so when I come back to life, okay, should VAAI be allowed to naturally evolve and granted personhood rights, thus voting rights beyond Armin's natural lifespan? Okay, so that's option A. Option B, should the legal entity that created VAAI have all the rights? Option C is VAAI be held. Should VAAI be held in common trust for Atheist Republic? Or option D, should VAAI be under the control of Armin's genetic descendants? Okay, what the hell? So basically, you take my brain cells and you turn it into something that is intelligent, and you want to see who has the rights to this artificial intelligence. I think that thing should have its own rights. Yeah, if it's an intelligence, if it's intelligent, is it okay? It really okay. So here's the thing: if it has, as soon as it becomes so, intelligence and self awareness are very very far away from each other. I think like a lot of people assumed intelligence means personhood, right? Intelligence does not mean personhood. Self awareness means personhood. Okay. So the assumption, I reject the presumption here that just because something is intelligent, it deserves rights. No, intelligence doesn't make you deserving of rights. If it gets to the point where it's self aware, then it's nobody should have be able to have rights over it. Like it should be like I have no rights over my genetical material. For the same, that's if I did, like if I could control the rights of any entity that was self-aware just because it had my genetic material, then my children would be my slaves, right? Or like it would be the same as saying, like option D, should VAAI be under the control of Armin's genetic descendants? Like, no, I mean VAAI would also be my, if it's self-aware, it itself would be one of my genetic descendants. Why would my carbon-based, why my naturally made genetic descendants all of a sudden have control over my non-naturally made self-aware genetic descendants? That wouldn't make any sense. Like option C, would VAAI be held in common trust of Atheist Republic? Why would we treat a self-aware entity like that? It would be it would be the same as saying, would can Armin's children be held in a common trust of Atheist Republic just because I share some genetic material with them? Or like just because they came from my cells? That doesn't make any sense. Like, let me be. Should the legal entity that created VAI have all the rights? All the rights of a self-aware thing? Like, again, that would be slavery. That would be ownership of a person. So yeah, no. So intelligence doesn't really matter. We don't care about an entity's intelligence. We don't grant them personhood. But as soon as any entity becomes self-aware, then they are a person and deserving of all rights that we enjoy. Does that make sense? Let me see what you guys are saying. Let me see if you guys agree. Okay. All right. I think I made it. Jack saying, Armin, do you have any kids? Not yet. No. Oh, also, don't ask me that question ever again, because when I do have kids, I don't want to talk about them for security reasons. In fact, I shouldn't have answered that. I do not answer things about my personal life anymore because of security stuff. Okay. Wait, there was somebody was confirming something about the shark. Oh yeah, so random guy is saying we honestly know nothing about them. Okay, so I was right about the Sharvaka. I forgot their name. I always forget their name. Forget their name. Yeah. So yeah, I was correct about the fact that we don't know much about them. I think I was right about that. Oxymoron is saying your understanding of consciousness is wrong. I I my nothing I said was incorrect about consciousness. When I say intelligence does not mean self-awareness, that's the only thing I said so far about consciousness, and that is absolutely correct. If you disagree with that, then you're wrong. No, Qasim is saying is self-awareness binary. No, it's not. It's on a spectrum. Okay, but it's miles away from mere intelligence. Okay, so let's go to the next question. Asian American saying Mickey Mouse was about to enter into a common domain in into the common domain in 2003 until Disney legally lobbied Congress to extend it. 76 years increased to 95 years after author's death. How long should copyright exist? How long should exist for? I just don't know. Um, I think you need studies to see what's the best for you. I think like obviously it's a give and take between what is the best number of years to make sure that the people responsible for providing um, the content or the art are getting rewarded enough for what they're contributing, but also not too long for the people who originally were responsible for something way after they're gone, for that, for people that had nothing to do with that constantly like being able to benefit from that. Like at some point something, you want to be, it's a basically a fight between people's access to content and information, and also consideration for creating enough motivation for artists and institutions around art and content to be motivated enough to continue creating content. um I think given where Disney is, like maybe or has already benefited how much from um Mickey Mouse, I don't think like they would, if I had to guess, I don't think the increase was necessary, because if you need, like, I think what Disney has become is already enough motivation, enough incentive for people to create something like Mickey Mouse. So I don't think like them increasing that, extending that, contributed anything much more to not taking that incentive away. So I think this was more like, if I had to guess, like this was not a beneficial move. But again, I think like to make suggestions like this, you would have to come up with like studies and show like what affects the amount. Like you want to make sure that by reducing the copyright time um, extensions, you're not reducing the incentives for more people to produce more, for more people, for more artists, for more content creators to enter the space, right? So to be able to see what affects people's decision making, I think you would need a study, um, and it's not something that you could just decide, right? But if I had to guess, I would say like that was unnecessary. That's just a guess. Oxymoron is saying, while there are numerous superficial critiques of Hinduism, there seems utter lack of serious intellectual critiques or debates over uh, dharmic hermeneutics in mainstream sphere. Any plans to do so, to do it? I mean, I don't know. Like a lot of people just like don't like the debates and critiques because they think like as if they disagree with them, they must be wrong. Um, Like, are you sure that it doesn't exist, or is it just because you don't like their takes and that's why you think it's not very serious because you don't like the criticism? Also, I also think like it's the incentives hasn't been there. I think like up until, I think for a lot of people, um, so for example, Islam and Christianity are religions that people are actively trying to defend them using debates or acting like intellectual tactics and philosophical arguments for why Islam and Christianity are correct, right? But so that's why when you see from Christians and Muslims, there are already a lot of debate tactics and a lot of push for making that seem like intellectually correct. Therefore, the reaction to that will be to challenge those claims, right? But one reason you don't see this on the Hindu side, it is because there's no attempt. There hasn't been that much of an attempt from Hindus to promote Hinduism by making an argument that this is Hinduism is the correct religion because it makes these correct claims, and here's how we intellectually and philosophically back it up, right? I mean, Hinduism grew because India has a giant population, right? Like people who convert to Hinduism um, often convert to it because of the lifestyle or the traditions that they like or the meditations that they do and gives them the right feelings, right? Like there's not that many people who are like for example, we do have people converting to Christianity because they listen to arguments for like, oh, this is why God is real, this is why Jesus is this, God. And okay, so I was convinced. I heard the arguments and I was convinced. Or people convert to Islam because you hear like some, you hear people's arguments and people like, okay, that was convincing, I'm a Muslim now, right? But you don't see like people evangelizing Hinduism and making arguments for why Islam and Christianity is incorrect. Like, I mean, recently you're saying it, but historically that was not a thing where people would go like, this is the intellectual reason why Hinduism is the correct religion, right? So given that that's not the argument for Hinduism, you wouldn't see arguments against Hinduism to be formed as a challenge to any intellectual arguments that Hinduism is making, right? Recently, though, that has been changing. Like I think a lot of Hindus are now copying Christians and Muslims and telling you why Islam and Christianity are bad religions and why this is why Hinduism is the correct religion. So, given I would expect that in the next couple of decades, you will see people creating a tradition of challenging Hinduism intellectually in response to that, right? So that would be my expectation. Um, and we'll see. Like we would like to be involved in that. Oxymoron in the live chat saying, well, Hindus have their own philosophy that probably as great as Greek philosophy. Material for debate exists. Even people who do just that, most Hindus aren't interested in post Brahmanical case. Okay, so the philosophical arguments that exist in Hinduism is between Hindus. Okay, so there's a lot of philosophical arguments within Hinduism that talks about, for example, how the nature of reality, right? Whether you're dualist or monist, right? So, for example, there's like a huge tradition in Hindu philosophy whether to talk about whether the existence of everything is just one thing, right? Or like there's like everything is made out of one thing, but once they're made out of that one thing, they're separate from that thing that they're made of, right? So these are like, and there's a whole bunch of like discussions like this that like favors dualism or monism or something in between, right? Or like what is like, if is everything an illusion, is everything that, so, but these are inner discussions within Hinduism. So for them to come up with their philosophy of how they view the world, and there's a lot of philosophical discussions within Hinduism. It gets very very complicated, very very complicated, right? But these discussions have not been surrounded on this is why Hinduism is correct and other religions are wrong. This is inner discussions within Hinduism. More recently, we're saying, and more of a because of the challenges on Hinduism, especially Christians coming to India and then Muslims coming to India. By the way, but recently, I mean like a couple of hundreds of years, like because Hinduism has a long history. So even though it has been a few hundred years, it's still kind of recently relative to Hinduism's history. But because of the conversions out of Hinduism to Christianity, and conversions out of Hinduism to Islam, and now the deconversions out of Hinduism to atheism, there's a defense being built up to challenge people to like, because early on and even up until recently, most of the attempts to keep people in Hinduism has not been, here's the logical reasons for why Hinduism is correct. It has been two cases. It has been two more of a, here's the logical reasons why Islam is wrong. Here are the logical reasons why Christianity is wrong, right? But if there has been any defense of Hinduism, is like, this is your identity. right? It hasn't been here are the logical reasons why the Hindu religion is the correct religion. That has not been the attempt. The attempt to be like, come back home. Where are you going? You know, you're a Hindu. You're born a Hindu. Your history is Hindu. This Hinduism is in your blood. You can't just leave, right? Don't betray your land or something like that. Like, this is your tradition, right? So that has been the main push to keep people in Hinduism or bring people back in Hinduism. But now we're seeing a buildup of like YouTubers or content creators to try to intellectually defend Hinduism, which would be very interesting because we would love to go and attack them once they start building that, right? The Asian American is saying some schools of Hinduism are like gods or pieces of your mind. Well, I mean, the main schools of Hinduism tells you that everything is made up one thing, right? Like the entire universe, everything that is just one thing, and the fact that we're seeing them as different is all just an illusion, right? That's why we say namaste, right? When you say namaste, you're saying that I see the divine in you. The reason is like what you're made of and what gods are made of are basically the same thing. So we're not technically, so we're not really set that separate from the gods themselves. That's why you say namaste. Okay. Let's go to this. Another question by Oxymoron. Oxymoron is saying modernity. Okay, here. Okay, so he has a question regarding modernity. Are modern humans more happy than humans who lived centuries or even thousands of years ago? People probably were as eager for Star Wars or theater acts as my friends about Marvel movies, despite shady graphics and technological incompetencies. Okay, I don't know. Like, I think like we have more access to modern humans have more access to food. Like, modern humans are less hungry, less sick. Um, you know, um, stronger. You know, they are less in pain, more in touch with the people that they want to be in, or for example, I'm pretty sure not seeing four of your children die from childbirth, or like, I mean, your children, like, imagine like watching most of your children die before age 5. Okay, that's a common thing for most of history, right? And that's devastating. So modernity has stopped that. I'm sure like not seeing your children die before they reach the age of 5 has improved our happiness to some extent, right? I'm sure like having your teeth pulling out without anesthetics um, has contributed to people in the past being a lot like, I don't even understand how they live. Like the amount of pain that they had to go through. Like I just had recently had a surgery, okay, with anesthesia and everything, okay. Like I this would like if I just was born just 200 years ago, this whole ordeal would be just like torture. Like it would be just like me being tortured. That's what it would be. Okay, so I'm pretty sure like the in so like I have access. I'm pretty sure all of you here have access to clean water, right? That's like a pretty new and rare thing for this many people to have access to clean water. Like being able to age well past age like 40, that's nice. Like being able to stick around and enjoy life more, that's part of modernity. I think that's pretty good as well. I mean, I enjoy that, right? I enjoy, once we have more aches and pains, having access to painkillers, that's pretty good. So I don't know if people appreciate what modernity has given to us, right? Like me being able to access all this information, talking to you guys. Like I'm all of us here are more aware of what's going of history and what's going on around the world. Like the percentage of the people that have access to all this information is pretty good. Like much higher than it was. Like, do you know how many people could even read and write back then? Like, imagine how boring life was, where 99% of the people had no idea what was like anything that was happening past their village. Like, what was life? Just get up, farm. Most of There's a very high chance that you were just a farmer, right? You're a lot of your life where you were in pain. People you had to A lot of your life involves watching the people you love be in absolute pain, and you just every day is like every day is just basically like any other day, unless somebody is attacking your village and burning everything to the ground. That's the only excitement that you might get. Okay. And also, like, these things that you're mentioning, like you're saying, people, theater. Back then, people were how many people had theater? How many people had access to theater back then? Okay. You had to be in a main city, and maybe some have access to wealth. Like, maybe like half of it, 1% of the people had access to theater. And even people who had access to theater, how long did they have to wait for the next show to come around? Like, even the kings, like, for example, if you were a king in France, like you lived in, um you had to go from your palace to Paris, which was away from the city, I don't know, once every 2 months for finally a show coming around. Like, that's the king. That's the highest, the most prestigious people get that level of it. And if we watched the theater, we would be bored out of their mind. And that's the entertainment that the king had access to, right? Um, but now, what percentage of our young has access to Xbox, right? Xbox and PlayStation and computer games, right? Imagine the level of entertainment that people have access to, and Netflix, right? And HBO. Like, we get Game of Thrones, and we don't even have to be rich to be able to watch Game of Thrones, right? We get people, like the poorest people on the planet right now, a huge portion of them still have access to Netflix. Like, half of the planet could watch like shows that kings could not even imagine, the amount of entertainment that we have access to. And so it's not even comparable. Like, I think, like, yeah, we are, by almost every standard, we're a lot better off. However, one thing that is contributing to more unhappiness is the fact that we're seeing other people's happiness. Okay, so this is the only thing I think that is like has screwed us over. Is like, yes, we have access to so much more, but we're also, for some reason, we're so goddamn jealous, right? So we keep seeing other people being very happy and having access. Like, we have all these things, but because other people have more things and we're seeing it on TV, on social media, we feel poor. So that's the main source of our unhappiness now. Even though we're living at the best of times, we still have found a way to become miserable. So that's the thing that is working against us. Black Name is saying no, they were not bored. They lived in the jungle. They had loads of stimuli. I don't know, Black Name, what your understanding of history is. Most of human civilization, people didn't just randomly. I think you're talking about pre-civilization, and even then, they didn't mostly live in jungles. They lived in, like, you know different terrains, not just jungles. But most people were farmers. They weren't in jungles. Most of civilization, people didn't live in jungles. I don't know what you're talking about. I think your understanding of history is just like before civilization. Guys, do you think like everything in the past is just like one mushy thing? And if you see people in the past, like before civilization, if they lived in jungle, you just assume like that's all of the past? Is that what's happening? Anyways, let's go to wait. Page Patron question is Oxymoron is asking: is hate between communities a bad thing that it leads to into genocide? Doesn't it imply rise of certain kind of identitarian awareness in community against wrongdoings that are likely to harm community? Won't it act as a deterrent to genocide if it's a mutual and somewhat balanced? I don't know what this question is referring to. I don't think you could. This is like a very black and white thinking. You have to give me a more specific example. I don't think it's just like a hate leads to genocide or hate doesn't lead to genocide. I don't think you could simplify it like that. I think you need to give me a specific example. This is like it's a lot more complicated. What leads to genocide? It's not just like, oh, people hated each other and therefore there's genocide. Um, Also, you're suggesting that hate could lead to a certain kind of identitarian awareness, and that could lead into in community against wrong. No, you think like that awareness doesn't stop the community from against doing wrongdoings, because that kind of a tribal identity-based tribal mentality will define things as wrong based on whatever betrays that tribe, right? So just because they are defining things as wrong, right and wrong, that doesn't mean they're defining it in the right way. In fact, most genocides are a result of that way of hyper awareness of your tribe's identity and an attempt to defend it. So I don't know why you think just because they have defined certain things as wrong and are actively against it, why do you think that would prevent genocides? In fact, if anything, a higher sensitivity towards what they're defining as wrong is often what leads to something like a genocide. So yeah, I think like you're being too charitable by assuming what they're defining as wrongdoing to be something that is good for 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 everybody. Okay. Oh, I'm gonna highlight this question, start this question to get back to it because it's a huge compliment to me. Okay, I'm gonna get to that MAGA hat atheist. That's a thank you. What would you rather? Okay, so last patron question. Random guy is saying, what would you rather pick? A time machine that can travel by 10 years in the past or to the future and work 20 times 20 times. Okay, work 20 times, what does that mean? Or an advanced stopwatch which can stop time upon up to 20 years in total. Like if I stop time for 2 years straight, I have 18 left and I can use it till the remainder is zero. Okay, I don't understand this question. You either have a time machine that you could go back and forth 10 years. Oh, and it works 20 times. Oh, okay, okay. So you have a time machine that works 20 times and you could go back and forth 10 years, okay? And then another one is that either the time machine or you have a stopwatch where you could pause time for 20 years, but you could use like 2 years at one time and then you could use another 2 years at one time. Well, it depends on how the stopwatch works. Like, is everything like stops moving and then I can move around? Because that's kind of useless, because I would like to be able to interact with people. Like if that stopwatch, if I could pause everything and everything stops moving and I'm the only one that is moving around, I don't like that, because like that's 20 years of alone time. That's 20 years of me not being able to engage with anybody, because everything, like that's 20 years basically in isolation. So no, thank you. I'll take the time machine. The time machine is pretty useful. Time machine, and I will never go forward, because I don't know what's going to happen if I go forward. I keep going backwards and make decisions based on my new information. Yeah, the time machine is pretty useful. Again, the time machine is actually dangerous because of the butterfly effect, right? So, but I'm assuming certain things are going to play out the same way as before, even with the butterfly effect, right? I'm assuming the effect is not going to be huge for things that are not around me, right? If, like, for example, if I have children, I will never go back to before that children, because if I go back to that the child will die, because whatever child I make after that would not be that same child. It would be a different child, right? So as soon as you have a child, you have to make sure you never go back in time before the child was born, or because you will be erasing that child because of the butterfly effect every time another child would be born, right? So there's a limit. I would probably never use, like, I'll never go back more than a week, right? I might just, like, every time I go back, I will just go only back a week or so to make better decisions based on new information that I have. So yeah, I will go with the time machine. I'll use that. I use it like that. Okay, so SP saying your views on Shia genocide in Pakistan in context of recent blast versus Muslim genocide in India in context of bigoted speeches given, who are more safe according to you? I mean, of course, Pakistan is more unsafe. Like, obviously, like, guys, as much as we are against the bigotry that exists in India against Muslims, and we will continue calling it out, and it's horrible, and India deserves better than this, and this is like a downward spiral that India is going on, and it could lead to more devastating results than what we're seeing right now. Okay, but Pakistan is on a whole other level. Obviously, like, we haven't seen attacks like this on any, like we haven't seen Hindus like doing. I mean, okay, so we have had before, right? But it happens more in Pakistan. Okay, in Pakistan, attacks on minority groups is extremely a higher rate, way more dangerous. It's a lot more unsafe to be a minority group in Pakistan than it is to be in India. Okay, we can condemn the bigotry that exists in India for the sake of India. We're not anti-India. We love India. That's why we try to speak up, because we know India can do a lot better, right? India is a secular democracy that deserves protection, right? Um, but it's like we never pretend that it's at the same level. We never pretend that the amount of bigotry, the amount of hate against minorities that exists in India is even close to how bad it is in Pakistan. Obviously, it's worse in Pakistan. Well, I need a spray. Just 1 second. Now, yeah, I got stuffy nose. Hope that helps. All right, let's go to the live chat questions. Stephen McSteventon is asking, out of curiosity, are either of you convinced that parallel realities actually exist or even could exist? Why or why not? I think they exist. Just because the math says so, apparently. Like, I mean, I can't do the math myself, right? Obviously, I don't have the expertise, like, but I am just doing Occam's razor, and basically, I mean, I don't want to use common sense because common sense doesn't lead you to good conclusion, but it would make sense to me why every possible reality that could be would be. You know what I mean? Like, but that's not a good reason, because that's just intuition. Intuitions are, like, not very trustworthy. But and also the same mathematics that I'm right now appealing to believing this have also come up with conclusions that are not intuitive at all. So forget that I said that. Actually, forget that. But again, I'm just going to appeal to authority, but not appeal to false authority. I'm appealing to expert authority, and what the math seems to be suggesting is that this is a theory that so far is the most that has done a good job in explaining certain things that has been observed without any theories being able to contradict it, and it's also the most simplest explanation that explains the highest number of phenomenons. That doesn't make it true. It just means that it's one of the theories that we have there that does the best job being at the same time simple, not contradictory to other explanations, and also explaining multiple things at the same time, right? And based on that, applying Occam's razor would suggest me for now, it's safe to assume that this is a correct theory, but I'm not gonna, obviously, because it's just because it hasn't been negated or disproven, that doesn't mean it's not wrong. It could be wrong, but we're just going based on possibilities right now, and I'm just going to appeal to the math, to the people who did the math. All right. What are your thoughts on anti-natalism? I don't. Depends on people. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it. Like, I mean, I make many decisions. Most of the decisions that we make is based on self-interest. If we want to be good people, we will dedicate a good portion of our activities to caring for the world, right? But it can't be 100%, right? If it was 100%, you would have to turn off your aircon or your heater, because you could have saved that energy to feed the poor or whatever. You would never buy a TV. You would cancel your Netflix and use that money to donate, right? You would never buy a car. You will always buy, like, there's endless number of things that we could do, to sacrifice our happiness for the good of the world. And I think that's a too high of an expectation, right? I mean, hold on. If you want to claim that I shouldn't have a child for the sake of the planet, I mean, is the argument we shouldn't have a child for the sake of the planet or for the sake of the child? Because I want to see, like, is anti-natalism mainly the argument that we shouldn't have babies for the sake of the planet, for the sake of the world, or for the sake of the child itself? Is the ethical view that negatively values procreation, and they argue that humans should abstain from procreation because it is morally wrong. Okay, yeah, I know, but why is it morally wrong? Okay, so I know based on what I've seen, there's two different arguments. Either it's because it's wrong for the planet. Well, if it's bad if you think it's bad, first of all, it's not bad for the planet, because depends on the country. Some countries are suffering from overpopulation, but some countries are suffering from underpopulation. So in those countries, you're actually helping if you procreate. So, but again, you can't be made to do everything just because if you want a child, if that was what you need for your life, you make a child. Okay. There are other ways that you could help make the world a better place. You shouldn't forego everything that makes your life better. Right. So if the argument is that we shouldn't have children for the sake of the planet, I don't buy that, because there's so many other things that we do that we could withhold that is good for the planet. But that's too high of an expectation, right? Everybody should I think, like, we should promote some level of activism or contribution, but not everything that you want. So but also, so I don't, if the argument is that, but if the argument is that we shouldn't have a baby for the sake of the child itself, because, like, we're bringing them to life without their consent, if I don't buy that argument as well, because there's no consent to be given when something doesn't exist, right? So I don't buy that argument. And also, technically, if you're committing a crime against a child because you're bringing into life without consent, if you could consider that a crime against them, then by by the same argument, you're committing murder against a potential child by not bringing them to life. So you should be charged. So if you could come up, if you consider this a crime or wrongdoing, even though they're not there yet for you to violate their consent, then you could technically say that murder also applies before something exists, because by not bringing them to life, you took away their potential of living. So I could accuse you of murder with the same logic. Like, this was a potential life, you didn't bring it to life, so you committed murder. So I'm against both arguments. Secular Sekai gave us a manual super chat, guys. Because this channel has been demonetized, you can't give us super chats here, but we have a GoFundMe link in the description that helps us raise funds against the legal attacks and challenges that has come up our way by Hindutva, right? So I don't know if people know, because we drew Hindu goddesses. Me and Susanna have police reports against us in India, and also we have our case. Our Twitter accounts were removed. We constantly get strikes on YouTube and demonetization. Like, that's why we're demonetized. Our case has become, multiple lawyers have brought up our cases in India. We have a legal team that is trying to defend us in India, and our case has also been even mentioned in India's Supreme Court, the Supreme Court, as a way to suggest limitation on social media. So we are trying to fight all of that. For that reason, we have a GoFundMe, and the link into that is in the description. And Secular Sekai is so kind that every time he wants to give us a super chat, because we don't have super chat, he just goes in the description and just gives us a GoFundMe donation there. So thank you so much. You could also support us by becoming a patron. Link is in the description. You get access to all of our art, the nude version of our art, which is like all these Hindu goddesses. So if you want to see that, you can support us on our Patreon. And also, I like this emoji that he's using, because this is basically our logo, right? The lion, the circle, and the horse is like, people figured out how to use our logo by emojis. So that's pretty nice. Thank you so much, Secular Sekai. And yes, Secular Sekai is saying, keep up the good work. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, Qasim saying, if one day you convert to a believer, what will you do with Atheist Republic? Will you shut it down, just leave it to atheists, or use it to promote belief in God? Well, I would use it. Yeah, I would use it to promote belief in God, because if there is a God and I found out, then the most ethical thing to do would be to tell people that he's real, right? Like, especially if there's a hell, the most ethical thing to do would be to warn people, because I don't want to see all these people that I like to go to hell, right? Like all these people. I mean, also people that I don't like. Actually, I don't want them to go to hell either. So, and given that we have access to all these people who would need saving under Atheist Republic, it would be irresponsible if I didn't use it as a way to tell people what the truth is, right? Like, so, yeah. So, I would use Atheist Republic to try to tell people that they were all wrong. And convince him that God is real. And yeah. Okay. And Ghassam is also asking, can we have a Persian character skeptic here? I found him interesting after watching some of his debates recently. He's good. But I mean, okay, so for people who don't know, skeptic is a Persian character in Iranian social media. He's like he's an atheist skeptic who swears a lot, and he's turning into a celebrity among the atheist community in Iran. But I mean, if you could find somebody who swears like that, maybe you could be that guy. But yeah, I can't be that guy. I don't have that guy's personality. And Dracula saying, I see some ex-Muslims online while posting content criticizing Islam claim that they are not trying to deconvert Muslims. Do you think it's a reasonable position? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Depends on the ex-Muslim. If I don't know if they're trying to deconvert Muslims. I am trying to deconvert Muslims. I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to tell people what the truth is. Um, but so you're saying if an ex-Muslim who's criticizing Islam, if they're not trying to deconvert Muslims, is their position a reasonable position? So it depends. Why are they criticizing Islam? So what's their goal? What's their intention? If they're not trying to convince anybody that Islam is wrong, then why are they criticizing Islam? One reasonable position could be like, I just want to express myself. I've been so. I mean, I'm just guessing. It really depends on ex-Muslim on what their answer to this question is. But if I had to guess, one reasonable position for why I still want to criticize Islam, even though I'm not trying to convince anybody, is because I just feel good getting this out of my system, because I've been, I don't know, for example, let's say I've been wronged by Islam and I've been told to be quiet about this, and now I don't want to. I don't want to. It just feels good to be able to say these things, and I don't think you need. I think that's a good enough justification. I think. USSR 2.0 is saying hot take: Western Americans in Ukraine are illegal jihadis. I mean, illegal depends. I mean, it's not illegal if they make it legal, right? The people who control the laws. I mean, Ukraine has said that invited them to come. So how could it be illegal? Do you maybe you should say immoral, but based on what laws? If the countries who are sending them allow them, if the countries who are receiving them allows it, they have set the laws so that it's not illegal. So who are you to decide that it's illegal? Do you set the laws, USSR 2.0? I mean, if you, unless you're a politician who has set, I don't know, maybe you are more powerful than you're letting. I mean, your name suggests that you might be as more powerful than I assume. But again, you don't, you know, I think maybe if it would be it would be harder for me to negate what you're saying if you said immoral instead of illegal. Then we could have a better discussion. I wouldn't agree with it, but it would be interesting. Um. Okay. Somebody saying, "Hey Armin, you are great. Been listening to you for 3 years now." Oh, thank you. One question: where is Imam Tawhidi? It seems like he there swallowed him. I have no idea. I don't know where he is. Okay. Jack is asking, what did you guys think about Daniel Hagaju's recent debate today? I haven't watched it. It should be interesting. I will watch it. Ask me again next week. Do you think God will be relevant concept even when interplanetary traveling will be possible? I find it hard to believe. I find it hard to believe it. There's two it's here. I find it hard to believe because of the level of technology there. Yeah, I don't think God will survive. I think God will not survive another 100 years, honestly. Okay, I don't think I don't think we'll have religion or God. If not by 100 years, by 200, I'm almost sure there would be no God. There would be no belief in God. Not because of just technology, but because of not just because of how technology is going to change around us, but mainly because of how technology is going to change within us. I think the very concept of human is going to be challenged in pretty soon. Okay, and I think the way the human brain accesses information and processes information is going to progress to the extent where questions like the existence of God, it will be something that us mere mortals would be even asking, and for the future human plus or whatever we're going to end up being, these are going to be ridiculous questions to even ask, right? Oh, Nagar is here. Hi, Nagar. Wow, we have some Qasim and Nagar here. These are our um, fans from our Persian show is here. Welcome, Nagar. That's great. All right. Oh yeah, I already read this one. What do you think about David Wood's approach to Islam? Stuff like eating Quran, making Quranigrams, Muhammad Boom Boom Room, and do you think that he sometimes exaggerates? Okay, so I don't think any of those are problematic in any way. I also have torn the Quran, spit on the Quran. I don't think those methods are useful for changing Muslims' opinions. I do think they're useful though for not letting people set a limit on expression, right? So when you desecrate the Quran or blaspheme, a lot of people tell us like that's not going to do much in convincing people that religion is wrong. Well, yeah, but that was not the goal. The goal was people are drawing red lines on expression, and we on purpose are trying to pass those red lines to make those red lines meaningless, right? Because if you don't piss on red lines eventually will turn into wall. Could turn into wall. I don't want to commit the slippery slope fallacy, right? So that's why we want to make sure that it backfires every time there's some limitations on expression. We want to do those things more so that method by its own, that method of limitation of expression, it just doesn't work, right? So you have different strategies for different goals, right? I do believe he used to exaggerate more. I think David Wood has become recent, in the past couple of years, has become a lot more careful. I don't know, past couple of years, I don't know how long, but I think some of his earliest videos, like when it comes to criticizing Islam, I do think he used to exaggerate more um, before. I think he's more careful right now. Um, and I think that's thanks to Muslims. I think one thing we could be thankful to Muslims is that their criticism of anti Islam criticism have made people who criticizing Islam be more careful about how they criticize Islam. So the anti critics of Islam have made criticism of Islam a lot more nuanced and a lot more advanced. So thanks to these Muslim YouTubers, I think a lot of people are doing a better job at attacking Islam, right? Okay. I have a debate in class next week in democracy. Is democracy the best form of government and why? I have to argue for the yes position. Well, good luck with that. Make sure you use a lot of just go to Google Scholars and just find a whole bunch of stats and data that shows how democracy leads to more prosperous societies. By many different metrics, right? GDP per capita, education, child mortality, right? Happiness measures. So that should be. There's so much research that would back that up. Oh wow, Secular Sekai gave us another super chat. Wait, is this? Thank you so much, Secular Sekai. Guys, link to our GoFundMe is in the description. Please check it out. And you could also support us on Patreon and PayPal and everywhere else. Swap Punk is saying, can you explain who is atheist exactly? You mean exactly? Atheists are people who don't believe in God. Easy. That was easy. Do you consider yourself a humanist? Yes, I do. Okay. This question I highlighted. I think I okay. So Mega had atheist. He started with all these compliments. So if you want me to notice your questions, this is a very good tactic. Okay, you can start with compliments, and it's more likely for me to highlight your question. Okay. So Mega had atheist is saying, Armin, you're such a healthy physical specimen. Besides working out, do you take any supplements like vitamins or herbs, especially when not feeling well? Um, I take creatine. I take zinc, calcium, and magnesium just because I try to take everything that I need, vitamins and minerals. I try to take it through food, not supplements, right? but zinc and magnesium seem to be hard to get from low calorie sources. So, but everything else I need from like when it comes to vitamins and minerals, the food that I'm eating seems to be providing all of that, because all the food that I eat is like high fiber, high protein, low calorie, with a lot of nutrition, like that has a lot of nutrition, right? But I checked all the food that I'm eating. I couldn't add anything to my food that gives me enough magnesium, the daily dose of magnesium and zinc that I need, without going over the calorie limit that I need, right? So that was really hard to get. So that's why I am supplementing. It's important when you're eating supplements to not, like, for a lot of people, like if you just take multivitamins, you're overdoing it. Like, it's important to just like only take the things that you're missing, instead of like just like, especially because some vitamins you could get too much of it, right? So I would never take multivitamins, right? um yeah, so the food that you eat is the most important thing, right? So I just make sure I eat a lot of vegetables. Like uh, I really like egg whites and sardines seem to be a major source of a major part of my diet, because they just seem to be like the multivitamins of nature, right? Multi-mineral and multivitamins of nature. They're just amazing. They pack everything there. Yeah, but other than that, the only supplements that I take, oh, and also I obviously take whey protein as well, right? Whey protein and egg whites and sardines are my main sources of protein. But the pills that I take is only minerals and creatine. Does that answer your question? I like the questions, health related questions. I could go into so much more detail, but I think people would be bored. Nigar is saying, I asked why Armin is more beautiful in the English channel than in the Persian channel. I don't know how to answer that. Okay, thank you, Nigar. Mm. Oh yeah, secular Sika is saying, if you're a patron, your question will be more likely to get answered. Yeah, guys, I will miss a whole bunch of questions in the live chat, but patron questions will always get answered, right? Well, unless they're not a question, right? And they get priority, and you could also send them ahead of time. So if you want to make sure that me and Susanna answer your questions, Susanna wasn't feeling well today, but usually Susanna is here as well. If you want to make sure your questions get answered, become a patron, link in the description. But please do not support us financially. If you're suffering financially, do not support us on Patreon. If you want to support us uh, without any financial cost, please just like the video. That really does help us, right? Nigar, did you ask another question? Oh, what did I say? Why is Nigar upset? I don't want to make Nigar upset. Nigar, ask your question. Do you want to? Oh. um Somebody saying, Armin, can you go on debates? You would crush every apologist. I would love to go on debates. I just like, it has to be debates that will help our channel grow. Like, I can't go on debates with like smaller channels, okay? Because my time is limited. So if I spend any time doing debates, it has to be something that is going to help our channel get more views, right? So, but and if you guys want to like reach out to anybody and convince them to come reach out to us for debates, I would be happy to do that. Okay. Did I miss any new questions that are coming in? There's a whole bunch of other questions that I missed. I don't understand this question. Okay, Nigger saying, I asked an important question. Why does Armin not answer? What was the question? Wait, was the question why? Was that the question that I highlighted? Nigger, can you ask your question again? What was the question? Oh my god. Okay, Qasim, can you ask Nagar's question? I want to make sure I answer it. Secular Rights saying, I have been trying to get some Muslim apologists to agree to a debate with you on modern day debates. They have not responded yet. Oh, thank you for trying, Secular Rarity. I really appreciate you trying to set that up. You answered yes. Okay, but okay, Negar, that question I don't know the answer to that question, so that's why I don't know the answer. Puya saying, I fell in love with sardines after you recommended them. I honestly don't get why people say they're gross. They taste great. Yeah, it depends on how you make them, right? I just squish them in a sauce. Like I squish the sardines, I put soy sauce on it, I put some sweetener, I put some curry powder on it, I put some salt and pepper on it. I put some some other things, and I make it and a little bit of milk, zero fat milk, and I make a sauce out of the mush sardines, and then I take spinach and onions. I cut spinach and onions and garlic, and egg white. I cook egg white without the egg yellow, and I cut the egg white. I mix it with the salad, and then I pour the sauce on top of the spinach and the egg whites. Then I mix it very good for the sauce, for my sardine sauce to get infused into the egg white. And then after that, I take squash. I cut the squash into pieces, and then I cook, air fry the squash. So I have these like really, you know, crunchy little squashes, and then I put all these cut squash on top of that, and then I eat that. Like it's so good. It's such a basically that's everything. Like the food that I eat, every time I'm eating a meal, it's like all the nutritions that you need packed in one very delicious giant dish, low calorie but very filling dish, right? And for sweets, I do air popped popcorns, and I take my protein shake, and I make like a very dense protein, sweeten it up, and put some PB2 on it, so some peanut buttery taste, and put some cinnamon and some coffee in it for an extra coffee taste. And I take my popcorn, air pop popcorn, so no oil, right? And then I pour my protein shake like on top of my popcorn, like as like a sauce, like a dressing on top of that. And then I eat my popcorn. That's a huge source of fiber, right? And a lot of protein, and it's so filling, right? These are so easy to make, and but the food that I make is cheap, is like cheap, okay? So filling, very low in calorie, full of fiber, full of protein, and a lot of nutrition, and delicious. And so you don't need to be a cook. You know, I can't do a recipe book. I just have two recipes. These are my two recipes. I don't have anything else. Okay, I'm gonna do one more question. Nagar saying, I say no, thanks for the answer. Oh, you didn't wait. Nagar doesn't like my answer. Okay, so you asked another question. Guys, where is Nagar's question? Okay. So, seeing last time when somebody asked about planned obsolescence, is that how you read that? You said capitalism problems can be solved with more capitalism. Love you, but do you hear yourself? Yeah, I do hear myself. I'm right about this. The reason bulb company planned because they weren't making profit because bulb lasted too long. Do you still have the same take? Yeah, I still have the same take. Faulty products, bad products. The solution to that is more competition, which is part of capitalism. I still have the same take. Yeah, I do hear myself, and I'm very correct, and you're wrong about this. Yeah, increased competition means better companies having to compete for the satisfactions of the customers, which will result into better products. So what's the problem with that? Like Hal is saying, everyone here wants to know that are you pissed at your dad for getting you circumcised? Everyone here wants to know that, Hal? Are you sure about that? I don't think everybody here wants to know that. I think it's just you. I don't think that's everyone, but okay. No, I don't feel pissed. My dad has already said that he regrets that. He thinks like my dad is a doctor. He advises people not to circumcise their children, and he actually says that's one of his greatest regrets. And I feel like um, in life he regrets doing that. He thinks that he believes that's a wrong thing to do. And I was surprised for him to say that was one of his greatest regrets. And I actually think like for somebody who's comes from a society where everybody's circumcised, and it's still normal in Iran. Circumcision in Iran is still completely normal. So I was actually pretty impressed with my dad for him to have a take to say like not only he's against circumcision, he's going as far as saying that this is the one of his greatest regrets in life. Like holy crap! Like really, like you must have made a lot of great decisions. That I mean, this is really bad, all right? But that's pretty progressive of my dad for him to say something like that, right? So I'm actually pretty impressed with my dad. Secular Sekai saying, would it be helpful for us to reach out to both atheists and theists regarding debates? Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. I know of a growing African humanist YouTuber who was interested. Yeah, sure. Please tell them to email us at info@atheistrepublic.com. I'm just going to. Yeah. All right. Okay, Negar is going to ask her question on the Farsi channel. Okay, as long as you make sure you ask it, because I want to make sure I answer your question, Negar. Okay. So Imran is saying, well, more competition doesn't just come out of thin air. Some industries have too high of a barrier to entry after a certain point. I completely agree with that. That's why I don't believe in laissez-faire capitalism. I believe in regulated capitalism. I believe I'm not like these libertarians who believe that government should stay out of everything because they think that they're libertarians, but they're actually anarchists. I think governments have a role in breaking up monopolies, and also governments have a role in lifting up entrepreneurship and providing resources and support for small businesses, right? So I do believe in that. I do believe in higher competition, but that doesn't, just because I believe in the capitalism, positive role of capitalism providing competition, that doesn't mean that I think capitalism by its own will solve everything. That's why I do see a role for the government to get involved, right? I just don't demonize capitalism. I think we should regulate capitalism rather than demonizing it, right? Regulated capitalism is, if the regulation are right, is the most efficient way to prosperity for every country. All right. I am. Yeah, Armin, can you make streams of you going to Muslims in the street and talk to them like you did in Australia 3 years ago? I might in the future, not for a while. Maybe if I want to go back to. I mean, I don't know. I've gotten so many death threats that at some point I have to be thinking of my loved ones, right? Like at some point, the amount of stress that I'm giving them by potentially putting myself in a position that I could be harmed, even if the chances are low. The people who love me, they would be stressing out. So it wouldn't be fair to them. So I don't think I want to do that to them, right? Secular Red saying is great stream. Okay, great, guys. Secular Sekai is also saying both the Secular Rarity and Secular Sekai, they both agree that the stream today was great. So that means my job is done. Guys, make sure, please, you like the video. Please share our channel, share our videos with as many people as you can. Your likes and your comments really do help us grow the channel. And if you are in a financially comfortable position. Only if you're financially in a comfortable position, please consider supporting us. Link to our Patreon is in the description. You could support us for as $1 a month, and you get a lot of beautiful, sexy, blasphemous art and every week as a thank you. And you get my book Why There's No God for free as a thank you. And you also get access to priority access to questions on our Q&As as well. All right, so link to that is in the description. Thank you, everybody. Oh, somebody's saying love you, man. Thank you. Oh yeah, Nagar is inviting people to come on the Farsi channel. But I mean, if you speak Farsi, maybe come on the Farsi channel. Susanna sometimes comes there because she likes to hang out with us. All right, guys. Talk to you guys in 2 days when me and Susanna will be doing the news. Hopefully, Susanna is feeling better by then. And yeah, talk to you guys later. Bye.